at the Paris Climate
潘
Conference.
基文秘书长、
Mr. Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, dear
女士们、
colleagues,
先生们，
ladies and gentlemen,
今天我们齐聚巴黎，
today we are gathering
出席
here
联合
in
国气
Paris
候变化
for the opening
巴
ceremony
黎大会的
of
开
the
幕式。
United Nations Conference on Climate
这表
Change.
明
Our presence
恐怖主义
shows
阻
that
挡不了全
terrorism
人类
cannot hold back
应对气候
mankind's
变化、
efforts
追求
to
美好未
address
来的
climate
进程。
change and pursue a better
借此
future.
机会，
Let me take this
我愿向
opportunity
法
to
国人民
express
致以
my
诚
sincere
挚的慰
sympathy
问，
to the French
同时
people
对奥
and
朗
my
德总统
gratitude
和法国
to
政府
President Hollande and the
对这次
French
大会
government
召开所
for
做
their
的精心筹
meticulous
备
preparations
表示
for
感
this
谢。
conference.
巴黎大会是为了加强
This
联合国
Paris
气候变
conference
化
is
框架公
convened
约的
to
实
strengthen the
施，
implementation of the
达
UN
成一个
Framework
全
Convention
面
on Climate
均
Change
衡
and bring
有力
about
度
a
有约束
comprehensive,
力的
balanced,
气候
ambitious,
变化
and
协议。
binding agreement on climate change.
法国作家
The
雨果
French
说
writer Victor Hugo
最大
once
的决心
observed
会产生
that
最高
extreme
的智慧。
resources spring from extreme
我相信
resolutions. I
只要
believe
各方
that with all
展现
parties
诚意
making joint efforts
坚
with
定信
sincerity and
心
confidence,
齐心协力，
the Paris
巴黎大会一定
conference
能够取
will
得
yield
令人满意的成果。
satisfying results.
尊敬的各位同事、
Dear
女
colleagues,
士们、先生们，
ladies and gentlemen,
巴黎协议
the Paris
应该着眼
Agreement
于强
should
化
focus on
2020
strengthening
年后全球应对
post-2020 global
气候变化
actions
行动
on climate change
也要为推
and
动全
boost
球更好
global
实现
efforts to
可持续
pursue
发展
sustainable
注入动力。
development.
巴黎协议
The Paris
应该有力地
Agreement
实现
should help
公约目
meet the
标
goals of the
引领绿色发展
UNFCCC and chart the course for
协议
green
应该遵
development.
循公约
The
原则和
agreement
规定
should follow the principles and
推进
rules
公约
set
全
out
面
in the
有效实施
UNFCCC and
有
contribute
效
to
控
its
制
full
大
and
气温室
effective
气体浓度
implementation.
上升，
The agreement
推动
should
各
put
国走
effective
向绿
control
色
on the
循环
increase of
低碳发
atmospheric
展。
concentration of greenhouse gases and
巴黎
encourage
协议
countries to
应该有
pursue
利于凝聚
green,
全
circular,
球力
and
量，
low-carbon development.
鼓励
The
广
Paris
泛
Agreement
参与。
should help galvanize global efforts and
协
encourage
议应
broad
该在
participation.
制度安排上
The agreement should provide
促进各国
institutional arrangements
同舟
that
共济
propel countries to make
共同努力。
concerted efforts.
除各国政府，
Besides
还
governments,
应该调动
it
企
should also
业、
mobilize businesses,
非政府组织
non-governmental
等
organizations,
全社会
and all
自愿
players in
参与
society to
国际合作进
participate
程，
in international
提
cooperation
高
on
公
climate
众意
change,
识。
thus raising public awareness of
巴
climate
黎
change.
协议
The
应
Paris
该有利于
Agreement
加大投入，
should help increase
强
input
化
of
行动
resources
保障。
to ensure actions on climate
发达
change.
国家
Developed
应该落
countries
实
should honor
到
their
2020
commitment of
年每年动
mobilizing
员1000亿
100
美元的
billion
承诺。
US dollars each year before
2020
2020
年后向
and
发展中
provide
国家
stronger financial support
更加
to
有力的
developing
资
countries
金支持，
afterwards.
并向发展中国家
It is also
转让
important
气
that
候友好
climate-friendly
型技术。
technologies should be transferred to developing countries.
巴黎协议
The Paris Agreement
应该有利
should
于照顾
accommodate
各
the
国国
national
情，
conditions of various countries
讲究
and
务实
lay
有效。
emphasis on practical results.
应该尊重
It
各
is
国，特别
imperative
是发
to
展中
respect
国家
differences among
在国内
countries,
政策、
especially developing
能力建
countries,
设、
in
经
domestic
济
policies,
结构方面的
capacity
差异。
building, and economic structure.
应对气候变
Addressing
化不应
climate
该妨
change
碍
should
发
not
展中国
deny
家
the
消除
legitimate
贫
needs
困，
of developing
提高人民
countries
生活
to
水平
reduce
的
poverty
合理
and
需求。
improve their people's living standards.
尊敬的各位同事、
Dear
女士们、
colleagues,
先生们，
ladies and gentlemen,
巴黎协议不是终点，
the
而是
Paris
新的起点。
Conference is not the finishing
作为
line,
全球
but
治理的
a
一个
new
重要
starting
领域，
point. As
应
an
对气候
important
变化
part
的全
of
球努
global
力是一面
governance,
镜子，
the global efforts
给我
on
们思
climate
考
change
和探
can
索
be taken as a
未
mirror
来全
for
球
us to
治理
reflect
模
on
式，
what models to have for
推
future
动建设
global
人
governance
类命运共
and
同
how
体。
to build a
带来
community
宝贵启
of
示。
shared future for mankind. Much
我
valuable
们应该创造
inspiration
一
may
个
thus be
各
drawn.
尽所能、
We should create
合
a
作共赢
future
的
of
未来。
win-win cooperation with each country
巴黎大
making
会应该
contribution to
摒
the
弃
best
零
of
和博
its
弈、狭隘
ability.
思维，
The Paris
推动
Conference
各国，
should
尤其是
reject
发
the
达国家
narrow-minded mentality
多一
of
点
zero-sum
共享，
game and
多一
call
点
on the
实现
developed countries in
互惠
particular
共赢。
to assume more shared responsibilities
我们
for
应该创
win-win
造一个
outcomes. We should create a future of the rule of law, fairness, and justice. It is imperative to ensure effective observance and implementation of international rules, uphold democracy, equity, and justice, and build international rule of law. At the same time, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities must continue to be adhered to. We should create a future of inclusiveness, mutual learning, and common development. Countries need to increase dialogue, exchange best practices, and achieve common development through mutual learning. At the same time, countries should be allowed to seek their own solutions that best suit their respective national conditions. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, China has been actively engaged in the global campaign on climate change. China now tops the world in terms of energy conservation and utilization of new and renewable energies. Going forward, ecological endeavors will feature prominently in China's 13th Five-Year Plan. China will work hard to implement the vision of innovative, coordinated, green, open, and inclusive development. China will, on the basis of technological and institutional innovation, adopt new policy measures to improve industrial mix, build low-carbon energy system, develop green building and low-carbon transportation, and build a nationwide carbon emission trading market, so as to foster a new pattern of modernization featuring harmony between man and nature. In its intended nationally determined contributions, China pledges to peak CO2 emissions by around 2030 and strive to achieve it as soon as possible. And by 2030, reduce CO2 emissions per unit of GDP by 60 to 65% over the 2005 level. Raise the share of non-fossil fuels in primary energy consumption to about 20%, and increase forest stock by around 4.5 billion cubic meters over 2005. This requires strenuous efforts, but we have confidence and resolve to fulfill our commitments. The Chinese government earnestly implements its policy commitments of South-South cooperation regarding climate change. In a show of greater support, China announced the establishment of an RMB 20 billion South-South Climate Cooperation Fund in September. Next year, China will launch cooperation projects to set up 10 pilot low-carbon industrial parks and start 100 mitigation and adaptation projects in other developing countries, and provide them with 1,000 training opportunities for tackling climate change. China will continue to advance international cooperation in such areas as clean energy, disaster prevention and reduction, ecological protection, climate, smart agriculture, and low-carbon and smart cities. China will also help other developing countries build up their financing capabilities. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, tackling climate change is a shared mission for mankind. All eyes are now on Paris. Let us join hands to contribute to the establishment of an equitable and effective global mechanism on climate change, work for global sustainable development at a higher level, and bring about new international relations featuring win-win cooperation. Thank you.